Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And the New Jersey Devils offseason has begun, my friends. Oh, it has begun. Started off with the Devils signing Juho Lammikko from Switzerland for around league minimum. Not a big newsworthy story, unfortunately. I do think this was the Devils kind of reaching, in a way, for a guy that was playing overseas, hoping they could kind of resurrect his NHL career and he could contribute something in the bottom six. So I'm not going to make a big deal out of that maneuver, in a vacuum until we see how the rest of the offseason plays out. But I do believe that the team believes he could contribute. I do not think they were making this signing for the Utica Comets. I do think that they believe he's going to be a bottom six guy. Maybe he will. Not a significant move by any stretch, and we'll see how it all plays out with how the rest of the roster shapes up over the offseason. But the first move of note, Fitzy goes out and trades Erik Haula to the Nashville Predators for a fourth-round pick and an ECHL defenseman, and it was a salary dump. Appreciate Erik Haula for his time as a New Jersey Devil. He was a good soldier, and the Devils had to shed some cap space, and it starts with moving Haula to Nashville and freeing up $3.15 million of oh-so-valuable cap space in a summer where cap space was going to be very tight. Very, very tight. That gives us a little more breathing room, but not quite enough to do something meaningful. As it stands right now, after the Erik Haula salary shed, the Devils are a hair under $14.4 million of open cap space. And as we've talked about time and time again, Luke Hughes is going to get roughly $8.5 to $9 million of that, I do believe, on a long-term contract. Do believe it'd be a huge mistake if they do a bridge deal with him. We've talked about that as well. If they sign him for a little less for a few years, when that contract comes back around, I do think Luke would be in line for a hefty raise given the new cap climate, and with it constantly going up. In a few years, Luke very well may be a $12 million player. And so I do think it is in the Devils' best interest to get that long-term deal done, and everyone thinks, 8.5, $9 million, something like that. So let's just use $9 million for a round number. If they give Luke $9 million on the long-term deal, that would leave $5.4-ish million left, which is a lot better position than they were prior to moving Haula. But to do something meaningful, they're going to have to move some more salary one way or another. And everyone right now is looking at Ondrej Palat. Now, again, Palat is another guy I do like. Some big moments in that playoff, obviously, in 22-23. But the elephant in the room is that obviously he's overpaid. At $6 million, you look at a guy like Palat, and that's why his name keeps coming up. And is that $6 million better spent elsewhere? It's an obvious yes. And so a lot of people are now looking to Fitz to see if he can move out Palat. I don't think it'll be as easy, obviously, given the dollar amount. I do think they could find a new home for Palat. It may take some assets in the forms of picks, maybe a prospect or two, possibly retention on the salary, possibly a combination of both. But if Fitz can somehow move out Palat, especially without retention, if he could somehow figure out a way to do it without retention and free up another $6 million, that certainly would be exciting, because then you're talking about having some real money to play with. And again, it wouldn't be, an overwhelming fortune, but you're talking about $11.5 million left after paying Luke. You could pick up an impact player with that for sure. And I do think, as many of you do, that the most pressing need for our beloved New Jersey Devils this offseason, I would love to see a rugged top six winger to play with jackhughes. I think it's been needed for quite some time now. And no time like the present. It would be amazing to pick up a big body with some skill, little tenacity to play with Jack. I think that's the number one need for the team, and it's going to require money to do so. And so everyone's looking at Palat. If that $6 million gets freed up, all of a sudden now things get super interesting in New Jersey for the offseason. Would really be interesting to move off of that. We'll see if Fitz can find a way to get it done. And then a lot of people are kind of speculating about the trade market and guys that they would like to see come to the Devils. And I talked about this on a previous live, but I'm sure tons of you did not see it. And my thoughts is this. People are throwing out names across the league. How about this guy? How about that guy? The reality is, almost all the names people are throwing out and suggesting in the comments or whatever it may be, almost all of those guys would be an upgrade to the roster and make the team better in some way. Almost any of the guys people are saying, because the bar is so low. When you look at the offense from last season, the reality is the roster was very subpar, even in the playoffs. You look at a lot of the forwards and you're like, this is just not it. This is not a winning playoff roster. It's just not. And so if you throw out any average, above average NHL player, that would represent an upgrade to the team. However, again, we are in a cap climate. I almost broke it. We are in the cap climate. You don't have unlimited money to spend. You have limited assets in the form of picks, prospects, players, whatever it is, to trade for other players. And so I'm of the belief that you are now in a position that every piece brought in has to be the right piece. So yes, a guy like Marco Rossi, I'll use for as an example, or Jason Robertson, would they make the team better and be an upgrade? Absolutely. But you got to be greedy here, guys. Are they the best guys to spend the money on? And guys like that, not to single them out, but those two guys in particular, in my opinion, are not the best usage of assets or cap dollars to improve this team. Again, I'm not denying they'd make the team better. They absolutely would. But you don't have unlimited moves to make. There's only so many moves that will be able to be made. And so I think Fitz has to really hone in on what is the exact puzzle piece we need to complete this New Jersey Devils team and really make them a contender. And obviously, you know that I think skilled, physical guys. If you watch the playoffs, I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone says, there is no denying that the physicality was through the roof in the playoffs, in the finals, and you need dogs, period. You need dogs. We have some, not enough, and you need them in your top six. Having them in the bottom six is not enough. Right now, the identity of the New Jersey Devils, I feel like, is kind of in a state of flux, and this is a huge offseason going forward, right? We only have Nico Hischier under contract for the upcoming season and one more. 2 more years. Now, I personally hope Nico Hischier retires a Devil and is a long-time, New Jersey Devil, wins a cup or 2 here or 3. Would love to see as many as possible. I would love to see him be a lifelong Devil and have his number 13 hanging up in the rafters one day. But there's no guarantee of that. And more nowadays, players are looking at the overall package when picking to sign somewhere long-term. Do I think this team has a legitimate chance to win the cup? Do I like living here? Yeah, and all these other things. Now, I do think Nico likes the Devils, obviously. He's been the captain for some time now. He's probably very used to the area, but, he has to be thinking in the back of his head, like, are we really going to win a cup here? And there's 2 more years, essentially, or less, obviously, to convince him that this is the place to stay. There will be a million teams trying to get him. Nico really could be a difference maker on a lot of playoff contending teams that could really push them over the edge to truly contend. And so I hope he stays here, but I think you have to show him that the team is moving in the right direction. And right now we've been kind of stuck in neutral and possibly even in reverse, given how we finished in the 22-23 season with a franchise record, 112 points, beating the Rangers in that beautiful 7-game series. We followed it up in 23-24 with missing the playoffs, and then we got crushed this season against the Hurricanes. And so if you're Nico, you're like, maybe this isn't the place. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he's a lifer. But you got to win now. Win now, make win now moves. And so we'll see how it all plays out. But you need to get the right pieces, not just any upgrade you could get. Because if people are throwing out all these names, and yes, while they're upgrades, they're not the ideal upgrades for exactly what this team needs. And that's why Fitz is going to have to really hit it out of the park on every guy he brings in. Because there's not going to be many, in big roles anyway. There could be, maybe 3 or 4 bottom 6 guys. And 1 top 6 guy if you could free up some money elsewhere. But we really need a top 6 dog to play with Jack. And that morphs the identity of your team. If you look at the Panthers and some other teams, it starts from the top down. You want those guys, those absolute warriors in your top 6, and it kind of bleeds down and everyone else kind of morphs to that identity. And guys will start raising their game and hopefully make the team better. But I think it starts at the top. Would love to see a top 6 dog. That's my number 1 want for sure. Would love a guy like Tuck. There's plenty of others out there, but Tuck in Buffalo that'd be a beautiful fit. Who even knows if Buffalo wants to trade him? There's a lot of rumors and smoke around tons of guys around the league, including him. But Tuck would be very high on my list. Big body, 6'4", just physical guy. I think he could be a perfect type of player to be on Jack's wing. But when you look at the Devils in terms of trade chips and freeing up other salaries beyond Palat, a lot of people are looking at Dougie and Dawson Mercer. Let me start with Dougie. I like Dougie a lot. I think he brings a lot. I think you saw how valuable he was to the team when he went down with injury in the 23-24 season. The team really struggled And it was kind of painful without him. Now, I do think the defense obviously is much better than it was in 23-24. And so should we move on from Dougie, I do think we're a little more insulated against a complete collapse defensively. But he still has tremendous value to this team. And at $9 million, I understand why the bullseye is kind of on him as well. People love to pick, especially Devils fans. Guys that make a lot of money are often victimized. Even Timo Meier, and I love Timo Meier. I have no complaints about Timo Meier, but a lot of you people just won't ever get it, and I'm done arguing with you, president of the Timo Meier fan club. But $9 million for Dougie, it was a slight overpayment at the time when we signed him, but that is what you have to do to get big-name free agents, unfortunately. That's kind of always been the case. There's bidding wars. You want to get the guy, you got to offer more than everybody else, period. And the Devils did that with Dougie, so $9 million, he kind of put a bullseye on himself to a lot of fans. But in the end, I'm a Dougie guy. I think we will miss him immensely when we move on from him. I do think we will be able to survive the post-Dougie Hamilton era in the next year or two. I think with the emergence of Luke Hughes as he becomes more seasoned, can take on more responsibility. Obviously, Nemitz will pick up some of that slack as well, but I don't think they're ready just yet. And a lot of people are just ready to push Dougie out the door and just think that Luke and Nemitz, that they're just going to assume those responsibilities and roles. And I think that's kind of crazy. These are still very young kids, not a ton of games in the league. And if you think we're not going to skip a beat by moving on from Dougie right now, you're sadly mistaken. And so for me, I'm not with everybody else looking to move off of Dougie anytime soon. Maybe next season, next offseason, whatever it is. I do believe he is traded before the end of his contract, but the time is not now. I think he's very useful to the Devils, and I think it would be a little hasty to move on from him now. Again, the asterisk being unless it's in the Quinn Hughes deal, obviously, because Quinn can pick up, you know, where Dougie was and do all those things that Dougie was doing. And then obviously in terms of financial, Dougie would almost be certain to be included in any potential deal to Vancouver to get Quinn Hughes. And so in that scenario, I'd be fine with it. But in terms of just moving him to shed the salary and not replacing him with someone like a Quinn Hughes, I think it would be a fool's errand, and I don't think it's going to happen. Don't think it's going to happen this offseason. A lot of people are hoping for it. I'm not, and I don't think it happens. And then you go to Dawson Mercer, another guy who I feel like has been unfairly targeted by a lot of the fan base. And maybe it's just because he had that big season a few years back and everyone expected him to keep building off of it. I'm also a Dawson Mercer fan. I think he's a very versatile player. You could put him out there in all scenarios. Late in the game to protect the lead. You could put him on special teams, power play, penalty kill. Shows a lot of effort, has a lot of hustle, could do a little bit of everything. I just think that a lot of people were expecting a lot more offensive production from him. And with the way he's been playing the past couple of years, he's been another guy that I feel like has been targeted somewhat unfairly. I get why, but I just don't think when you look at the team, you're like, Mercer's the guy we're going to complain about. Not me. I like Dawson Mercer, but I will say, as a kind of addition to this whole thing, I like Mercer, but like every other guy, I am not against trading anyone if I believe it truly makes the team better. And my biggest knock on this team, as many of you know for years, is that overall, we have a lot of undersized guys, and it's a little redundant in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying, you know, for all the people that are like, oh, all you people want 10 Curtis McDermotts and Ryan Reeves. No, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying at all. But when you go into battle, especially in the playoffs, and you've all watched it, you need to have some dogs and some bigger guys. We have a lot of small guys that, you know, even if they play a little feistier, it's hard to win the physical battles, and especially in the playoffs. And Mercer's one of those guys where I feel like he could potentially thrive and kind of take his career to the next level with another team. Now, again, I'm not saying we should trade Mercer, but if a trade presents itself where we could bring in a guy that helps change the DNA of this team, I would be all for it. Hypothetical, again. I'm not saying this exact deal, but just to throw a random one out there. If Buffalo is interested in Mercer as part of a deal for Tuck, for instance, that's a deal the Devils, in my opinion, should be all over for, because you're now, you know, you're moving a smaller guy out, bringing in a big dog like Tuck. Those are the types of moves that need to be made to truly push a team forward and to make this roster better prepared for the Stanley Cup playoffs, period. And so a guy like Tuck, would love to get him, and if Mercer has to be a part of the deal, so be it. But the Devils don't have a ton of tradable assets, I would say. Not too many. Our main trade chips at the moment probably realistically are, in no particular order, Dawson Mercer will have some value to teams for sure. Dawson Mercer is definitely valuable. Obviously, we have the 2026, next year's first-round draft pick, which I have no interest in, and our young defensemen, Shimo Nemitz, Seamus Casey. I would say those are our most likely to be traded pieces with value. Those are some good pieces. Two very promising young defensemen in Nemitz and Casey. Next year's first-rounder, and Dawson Mercer. And so with those pieces now, could you improve this team for next season, for the 25-26 season? I think so. I think you can, whether they're all included in one deal or, separate deals. That's some ammo to be able to upgrade the roster. And it's time for the Devils to really make one of these culture-shifting moves. I'm not saying it has to be a blockbuster, but at some point you have to make hard decisions. I think in the past few seasons, you've mostly seen what I would call easy trades to make. Easy trades to make. Even the Timo deal, right? Timo is a big-time player, but there was nothing that really stung, I would say, too much going the other way. A lot of people complained about Zetterlund at the time, and I like Zetterlund, but that wasn't like trading a guy like Brader or Nico or any of our core. And I'm not suggesting to trade any of the core guys. What I'm just saying is trades that truly move a team forward often are going to have a little sting to it. They're not going to be no-brainers. Like, to me, the Timo deal was pretty much a no-brainer. I think you just traded, I'm not going to call it, I got to be delicate here. I don't know the proper phrasing to use. But in the end, you traded a bunch of lesser pieces to bring in a big-name piece. Those are easy trades to make, in my opinion, because, it's almost a no-brainer. And especially when you're including futures. I personally have talked about this time and time again. First-round picks, winning teams do not give a crap about them. You see the Panthers trade them away like nothing for known commodities. Brisebois in Tampa Bay, I think, has traded away all the first-rounders for, the next several years. And he even said in a press conference, I'd rather have a roster of good players than a treasure chest full of draft picks. And I am the same way, and that's how winning GMs should think. Now, obviously, for rebuilding teams and stuff, the draft is very important. And even for established teams, you have to have a good draft department, scouting department, and a farm system, to bring along the guys for the future. But the Devils should 1,000% be in win-now mode. And when you're in win-now mode, you got to do everything you can to get that cup. And that includes trading away first-round picks for known players. The future is now. There is no tomorrow. Nico Hischier does not care about players that are going to be here in 5 and 6 years from now. Nico Hischier doesn't even care about Yegorov or Salayev or any of these guys. Nico might not be here, and so you must make win-now moves, try to make the roster as good as possible, and give this team a true chance to win. Markey's here for at least next season. I do believe he gets at least one more year from the Devils. So you call it even 2 years for Markey. You got 2 years with Markey and Nico Hischier. Make it happen. And again, I hope Nico's here forever, but minimum 2 years. Our core continues to age. Brader and Nico have already been in the league for 8 years. They have a single playoff round one and 7 total playoff games. Completely unacceptable. And so the point of all this is, it's time to make some trades that are not going to be no-brainers. They're not all going to be no-brainers, and you have to make some trades that are going to sting a little bit. You have to make trades with conviction. And to this point, look no further than Florida's GM Bill Zito, right? You got to make ballsy moves. Tons of people roasted him for trading Huberdeau and that huge blockbuster that brought Matthew Tkachuk there. A lot of people kind of talk smack about Zito after that deal. Super ballsy move. And it might be one of the most impactful hockey trades of my lifetime. Yes, Florida had some key pieces in place before Tkachuk got there, but he was absolutely the catalyst to their current dynasty. I'm already called them a dynasty, guys. Tkachuk gets there, they go to 3 straight finals, and they're now back-to-back Cup champs. One guy was the kind of main driving force behind all of that, and they're built to contend for quite a while. And so I'm looking for Fitz to make some of those tough trades. They all can't be no-brainers or trades that look like on the surface were just, Haula, to get rid of Haula's salary for a 4th rounder and an ECHL guy. Those are no-brainer trades, obviously. Anyone could make those. That takes no conviction, takes no guts. There's no element of risk or gamble involved. That's just like a straight, clean cut. There's nothing to think about. Where average GMs and good to great GMs differ is they are going to make the moves that fans and other players and people, executives across the league are like, ooh, is that going to pan out? That was a little bit of a risk. And you have to do that. There is no way to truly improve a team without making some of those bold moves. And it's time for Fitz to do it. We haven't seen any yet. We haven't seen any yet. Make a ballsy move. Let's see. Win now. Win now. I'm hoping we see it. Hopefully we see some money freed up, but there's a lot of things moving around here. With more salary cap space becoming available, you look at the trade market, you look at free agency, there's a lot going on. A lot going on. Rumors have been swirling. I don't know exactly. I couldn't do the whole deep dive to see where they came from, but supposedly Bastian and Dowling will not be back with the Devils. I don't think that's a huge shock to anyone. And supposedly the Devils are in negotiations with Cody Glass and Jake Allen. And while I love Allen, I've talked about this already, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. He's going to get pretty crazy offers from other teams. Again, cap is up. Not a lot of goalies available in free agency. I could see a team offering Allen like $3.5 million times 2 years. The Devils cannot afford to pay anywhere near that, nor should they. Nor should they. And then there was rumors that the Devils were looking at other veteran goalies to potentially bring in as a backup to Markey. I just think it's time to give Dawes a shot, but that's a whole nother topic. There's people kind of on both sides of the fence about that. But I think it's time for Dawes. But in negotiations with Cody Glass and Allen, I would take Cody Glass back happily as a fourth-line center. I don't want him to be our 3C. I would take him as a fourth-line center, but he's got to be cheap. It's got to make sense, and I don't know what he's going to get paid. He made 2.5 last year. Like, I don't think I would want to pay him that again. We'll see. We'll see. There's so many questions, and every move that's made is kind of a domino to the next thing. And so Fitz hopefully has a kind of laid out game plan of what he's trying to do in these next few weeks, but it's a big few weeks for the Devils and certainly for their 25-26 season. Would love a guy like Marchand. Again, obviously there's 0.001% chance, but you should at least try. If I'm Tom Fitzgerald, I'm at least making a pitch. You got to at least try to get a guy like that. I think he could transform a locker room almost single-handedly, but I think that's a pipe dream. But there's other guys out there that I think would be interesting. And when you start looking at guys potentially available for trade, there's endless possibilities of ways to improve the roster. There's just no shortage of it. But to piggyback on the trade market, now with the cap going up, I've said before, I think you're going to see some crazy contracts handed out for big money. I think people are going to be floored at what some guys are getting paid with this escalating cap. And so that is where you kind of take a look and you go, maybe I should look to trade for somebody who's already under contract with several years left because they were signed, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was, in the old cap environment. And you could find guys that are going to be very good deals, especially going forward when the cap keeps going up. And so I think that is a very viable and it should be the primary way Fitz looks to improve the team. I think it will be more sensible to make a trade versus signing someone in free agency because these deals are going to be nuts. Look for somebody on a deal that was already signed with years left under team control, and I think that's the way you get the best value for your buck in terms of cap dollars. So we're going to see what that happens. And then, obviously, as a total, another little thing kind of floating out there on the side, are the Devils still talking to Vancouver, or were they ever talking to Vancouver about bringing Quinn Hughes in sooner than later? I think that is a realistic possibility as well. Now, I do think Vancouver is hoping everything plays out in their favor and that Quinn ends up staying there. I just can't see it happening. They know he wants to play with his brothers. This has been a whole thing earlier in the spring as well, and I made some videos about that. But it seems like Quinn wants to play with his brothers. I do believe he will sign here in free agency if it comes to that. And I think it would be in Vancouver's best interest to trade him sooner. So could the Devils be looking to free up some cap space to slide Quinn in here? Is he part of this equation? I personally would rather just wait the 2 years instead of giving up tons of pieces. But if they're willing to take something that makes sense, not a crazy package, but I'm willing to pay a good price to get him here sooner than later. Again, win now, right? Nico, Markey, call it 2 more years. At a minimum, there is a value to getting Quinn here sooner than later, but I am not going to sacrifice tons of pieces and mortgage part of the future to get him here sooner if we could get him for completely free in 2 years. And so that's another interesting thing to keep an eye on. But we'll see, guys. We will see. The first step was freeing up Haula's money, and now everyone's looking at Palat. And then again, with the potential trades, I think Mercer's a guy a lot of teams would want. Potentially Dougie, but I don't think it's his time yet. And then obviously the other pieces that everyone's going to be looking at from other teams, if we're trying to make a trade, is going to be the young kid defenseman, Nemitz and Casey. I would hate to lose either one of them. I think they're both going to have great NHL careers. But if you realistically look at the roster, we have a good amount of defensemen, and we desperately need help up front. And so you would come to the conclusion that, okay, it's time to use some of our defensive chips to bring in some offense. And I do think Nemitz and Casey both would be super valuable in a trade, and I think one of those or both of those guys would be targeted by tons of teams. So when you look at the whole chessboard of the New Jersey Devils offseason, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential, especially if Palat gets dealt. That would free up an extra $6 million. And then when you take into consideration some of the trade pieces we have, it could get real interesting. I'm not expecting like a big move. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Fitz really goes for an impact player or two. Again, especially a top 6 winger. My expectations are sort of low at the moment, but if Palat, in fact, does get dealt anytime soon, I would be a little more optimistic because then we have some more money to play with and probably could land a guy. But there's a ton of guys in free agency, tons of guys being rumored in trades, and so I do think there is plenty of ways for Fitz to improve this roster, but we will have to see. But it seems like he's trying to do what he said. He said the group was not good enough. We're not coming back with the same team. And so how different will it be? Only time will tell. I'm hoping he keeps making moves and can bring in some impact players, but we need a top 6 winger for sure. For sure. Would love to see it. But I said a lot in this video. Let me know what you guys thought about anything I said in this video. Anything, everything New Jersey Devils, throw it out there in the comments. Who would you guys like to see the Devils trade for or sign in free agency? A lot of you guys are throwing out names left and right. I'll have a bunch more videos coming out in the next couple weeks regarding free agency. And all that fun stuff. I'll probably do a live for the draft, which is next week. There's tons of stuff. This is kind of the apex of the offseason now. After the cup gets skated, you have a week or two leading up to the draft, free agency, and then it kind of calms down again in mid-July until training camp and stuff like that. But throw it all out there in the comments. I enjoy talking to all of you. And that's all I got for now. But I will be back soon. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go.